Good evening, everyone, and welcome to August 27th version of Dallas Dallas Social Distancing Toastmasters. It doesn't work when you say single distancing Toastmasters, does it? It was on my mind because I actually changed the website this week to remove the formerly Dallas Singles Toastmasters. It now just says Dallas Social and does not include the other verbiage. I am Mark Schroeder. I'm your meeting facilitator tonight, of course. And so that means if you have any problems with Zoom or whatever, you can chat to me or get my attention in some other manner if you happen to have texts or phone to me. We've gone over a lot of the mechanisms before, so I'm not going to do a whole lot except to mention that, of course, remember to pin the speakers, or if you want to pin speakers, you can also pin your evaluators or your timer if you happen to be speaking, in order to make sure that you meet the timing requirements and can see your timer at all time, because your timer will otherwise be quiet. And of course, we'll use the chat on typically the right-hand side of your screen. The chat can be opened usually from the bottom, approximately center, and you will use the pull down to select our vote counter tonight. And I will go over that, but just briefly, our vote counter is going to be Dagan Newland. With regard to our agenda tonight, let's see, we'll go ahead and show the agenda real quickly. Share my screen. All right, so we have this for an agenda tonight. This, of course, can be found from the Dallas Social Toastmasters website, right over here in the right-hand column for members, clicking on the current agenda. That is the easiest way to bring up that copy of the PDF. There is another copy of it if you happen to set on our members page right here under meeting agenda in the box on the left-hand side. Both will work. They give you the same file. And with that, I think that really is going to conclude what I'm going to talk about with regard to our beginning of our meeting. Of course, you also have a choice of the speaker view or the gallery view, so that you can watch everybody and their reactions, or the individual speakers as the speakers change. Feel free to adjust that for yourself. Your settings do not have anything to do with the way the rest of us are viewing it. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the meeting over to our Toastmaster this evening. Our Toastmaster this evening is Lee King. Take it away, Lee.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. Welcome to Dallas Social Toastmasters once again. This evening, we are a little over 6 months into this pandemic, and one thing that was brought to my attention actually in a couple of different places is that actually a lot of people are starting to report signs of mental and psychological complications from the pandemic. Depression, anxiety are the two main ones. And so I thought that this would be a good time to just kind of regroup and discuss what we can do to help keep ourselves not only physically healthier, but also mentally healthier. And one of which is just making sure that you are finding other activities that you enjoy doing, finding hobbies and engaging in hobbies when you have downtime, which there tends to be a lot of downtime that we have. But first, I will start with going through our duty holders and having them give their reports. For this evening, we have Dagan, who will be both our timer and our hour counter. So Dagan, will you please share your duty holder roles, please?
Okay, first as timer, not sure what the time frames for the speakers are, but I'm sure I'll be notified. But when the speaker gets to their minimum time frame, they'll get the green background. And when they reach halfway through, they'll get the yellow. And when they reach their end time, they'll get the red and have 30 seconds to wrap up. And for table topics, it's 1 to 2 minutes. And you must hit 1 minute to qualify. But when you hit 1 minute, you'll get the green, 1.5 yellow, and At 2 minutes, you get the red, and they have 30 seconds to wrap up. And for evaluators, it's 2 to 3 minutes, so you'll get the green at 2, yellow at 2.5, and red at 3. And again, they have 30 seconds to wrap up. Excuse me. So remember, speakers and evaluators have 30 seconds leeway on either side, and table topics you must hit 1 minute. And then again, you have 30 seconds leeway on excuse me, the inside. And as for, and I'll give my timing report when called upon after each sections. As vote counter, after each section, you would vote for the best speaker, best table topic, best evaluator, and best of the big three, which will be the Toastmaster, table topic master, and general evaluator. So when called upon to make those votes, please send a private chat to me as the vote counter. And also after the different sections, if you have comments for any of the speakers up here, you can send them a private chat as well. And those are my duties, and back to you, Toastmaster.
All right. Our next duty holder reports will come from Marcia, who will be both our grammarian and our odd counter. Marcia, will you please share your roles with us this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good evening. Hello from sunny California, where it never rains, from Los Angeles. Okay, I think I just started that already, so I'm gonna mark myself down for saying So, as your grammarian this evening, it is my responsibility to pay close attention to all speakers, listening carefully to their language usage. I'll take note of any improper language, as well as any outstanding words, quotes, sayings, or thoughts. As grammarian, it is also my duty to introduce the word of the day. So for today's meeting, the word is, I'm going to share my screen, gumption, which means initiative, courage, common sense, shrewdness, resourcefulness, spunk, guts. You get the picture, right? An example of using the word is, with gumption, she'll make a success of herself. Another excellent example of this word is, it takes a lot of gumption to join an organization like Toastmasters. Each speaker is encouraged to use the word of the day. I will give the grammarian's report when called upon during the meeting, and also report on the usage of the word of the day. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right. Our final duty holder for the role for this meeting, for this week, there's been a slight change to the agenda because Kim was able to join us this evening. So, Kim, will you please share the role of posture monitor with us?
Mr. Toastmaster, as your posture monitor tonight, I will be trying to observe and note anything that's distracting from anyone's presentation. Whether you're playing with your glasses, your hair, moving around a lot, not focusing into the camera at a direct angle, something like that, that would be not enhancing your speech. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
All right. I do want to point out that we do have one guest this evening, Devon, and it's my understanding he might have to drop off early. So Devon, do you want to share any thoughts with us this evening?
Nope, I'm just being a sponge right now. Just going ahead and learning and being quiet. I'll probably start participating probably next week. So I'm a fly on the wall.
Great. Well, we definitely appreciate you joining us.
Thanks.
Going back to this week's topic, one of the best ways to deal with social isolation is to come up with activities that you enjoy doing that will take your mind off of things. Perhaps if you enjoy watching movies, watching some different movies, or some people, it's painting, and other people, it's reading a book. But one of the important things is just finding activities that you enjoy doing that just takes your mind off of everything else. Listening to music is another really good way to relax. Does anybody here have anything that they have found that they have enjoyed doing in their isolation?
Hey Lee, it's Nicholas here. I would definitely have to say exercise is a very big part of my isolation, as well as studying and learning new things and video games. So
Well, video games are a great way to spend time, and people definitely get lost in it. And then there's that sense of achievement. And actually, one thing about video games that I read is that in some aspects, it has helped with social isolation in that you can get to know other people through video games, through chat and speaking, and that has been a way that some people have connected with the outside world. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to share? Mark?
Well, for me, I have to admit, it started out being exercise. I got back into running some, and unfortunately, I got back to where I was running almost for 1 hour, and then the knee problem started happening again. So that's been a double-edged sword. I mean, it's good that I'm able to run the hour again, but it's wrecking the knees to the point that it's making it very difficult. So then we went to, like you said, music. I managed to put in a couple of pieces of equipment here, one of which was one of the Alexa or Amazon Dots, so I can get to Amazon Music. And I'm able to Bluetooth pair that with my stereo system so that I can actually listen to Sirius XM, which would normally be in my car, except throughout my house. So that's been pretty nice.
All right. Thank you for sharing, Mark and Nicholas. And with that, we will now move on to our prepared speaker section of the meeting. And I will call on Mark Sims to share the objectives of Nicholas's speech.
Nicholas is giving a distinctive type of speech tonight. It's 5 to 7 minutes. The title is "You're Leaving Me Home Alone," and alone has 3 question marks and an exclamation point afterwards, so that is a big deal. The purpose of the speech is to put an emphasis on language in order to increase interest in the impact of the speech. And part of my goal as evaluator is to listen for descriptive words words, and also elements such as the plot and the settings. Definitely look forward to "You're Leaving Me Home Alone."
You are leaving me home alone? Nicholas Elwood, you're leaving me home alone.
great. Thank you, Toastmaster fellow members and guests. Some of you may or may not be privy to, my family just recently decided to move down to the sunny low country in Charleston, South Carolina. On top of that, they decided to briskly leave me in the dust here in great old Dallas, Texas. I was quite shocked when they finally decided to pull the trigger in early July, but I did feel that it was an advantageous step for them, as they were very tired, as am I, of the uber conservative ideals so excessively portrayed here. At least we are FaceTiming and keeping in touch, more or less. Charleston, South Carolina is not only the most beautiful city in the United States, in my opinion, of course, but it is also the most highly rated restaurants per capita than any other city in the nation. Just imagine that. Picture that for 1 second. Charleston is located on the southeastern most portion of South Carolina, right here, and is located on the Atlantic Ocean. Charleston is also home to over 300 churches just on the peninsula alone. It has 6 major beaches and islands with white, pristine, elegant sand. Charleston's beaches and nature has been able to keep so clean and pristine because there are extremely strict laws prohibiting trash or disruption to the nature preserves. Though with all of Charleston's beauty, it was not always so luscious. Charleston, or Charlestown, as it was called in the past, played a paramount role in the American slave trade. And it was dominated for a time by a slaveocracy of plantation owners and slave traders. Per Wikipedia, my favorite source of all history and knowledge, historians estimated that nearly half of all Africans, with the most arriving at Gadsden's Wharf, a major port or dock wharf in Charleston. More on to recent times, fast forward a little bit, Charleston has been ranked as the most progressive city in South Carolina, which I don't know if that's saying a whole lot, but we'll take it from there. Travel and Leisure magazine has also ranked Charleston as the best city in the world perennially over the last decade. Although I wasn't the happiest person in the world since my parents moved back to my second home, I'm content that I will be able to visit them consistently and see all of my compadres down there. My parents technically did not move to downtown Charleston. Rather, they moved to Mount Pleasant, which is a very affluent and nice suburb of Charleston. They also moved to a house right on the water, which is where my dad has always wanted to live, where I want to live, but I don't get the opportunity to right now. Their house is a little bit hard to describe, but I'll try to give it a go. It's located on an estuary of the Wando River, which leads into the Gulf and then into eventually the ocean. I'd have to say the backyard may be the best part of the house. The backyard is an enchanting woodland with tall reeds and long grass that seems to stretch for miles and miles and miles. Dolphins and other forms of fauna frolic and dance about in the shallow marshes. You want proof? Seen it with my own 2 eyes. Or 2 eyes. This sublime and picturesque scenery is one of the main focal points of my desire to go back down to the low country. I wish I could go into more exquisite detail about my favorite place in the States, but alas, I have to move on, so I apologize. While the glitz and glam of Charleston continues to go on, I can't really complain about my living situation here in Dallas. You know, I recently moved into the diversified and charming Lower Greenville portion of Dallas, which is less than a mile from Lakewood. While living here the past 2 months, I have to say that Lakewood has to be hands down my favorite portion of Dallas. As you're all fully aware, I'd categorize Lakewood as a beautiful hamlet crossing into downtown Dallas and White Rock Lake. The rows and rows of enchanting and romantic homes also pleases the eyes. Since I'm also an avid runner, I've been consistently running through the endless amounts of parks, curved streets, and the especially vivid White Rock Lake, just abundant. Now that I look back on staying in Dallas, I have to say that I'm happy I made the right, potentially temporary, and sort of a gumption choice to stay. In total, I have 2 wonderful homes close and dear to my heart in Dallas and Charleston. Although Charleston is such a picturesque city in its own right, due to the incredible beaches, people, food, and architecture, Dallas has so many unique characteristics as well that make it a fantastic place to live. While Charleston is right on the water and littered with fine dining, Dallas has grown into one of the most dynamic and progressive cities in the country as well. There is a reason that Charleston and Dallas are seeing some of the highest population spikes over the past 2 decades. With that being said, I would not trade these 2 cities and their memories for anything else in the world. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Nicholas. Everybody, please take a moment to send a private chat to Nicholas if you have any comments for him. And I have to agree with Nicholas. I've been to South Carolina. It is very pretty. Actually, I went to Greenville, so didn't quite make it to the ocean. I would also agree that the area that Nicholas is living in Dallas is also a really nice area. My first apartment was actually right at the Dallas Arboretum. The old red brick apartments were built back in the 50s. I really enjoyed it because I was right there on the lake. I could easily go and just walk around the White Rock Lake.
Greenville is also beautiful as well. So yeah, no, props.
Yes.
That's a great spot.
Yeah, definitely my favorite part. At this time, I will now ask for John Vessels to please introduce Karen Lee's speech.
All right, good evening, everybody. Karen Lee is doing her first speech in Pathways. It's the evaluation and feedback. She's going to do her first speech, and her goal is to present a speech, and it's going to be a peach of a speech, on any topic and receive feedback and apply the feedback we'll give her tonight to her next speech. Her speech is 5 to 7 minutes, and it is entitled COVID-19 Humor. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Please help me welcome Karen Lee. COVID-19 Humor, Karen Lee.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and Devin. I was talking to a neighbor, and she told me about the government shutdown. She watches the news. This was in late March. And at the same time, my sister was calling me, telling me about the government shutdown, and telling me about the fact that the county had said that we were going to be staying at home orders for Dallas County. I thought, well, what is a government shutdown? Is the sky falling? That night, my cousin had also contacted me for my brother's contact information. And I was texting back and forth with her, kind of in a panic. She was able to calm me down. Well, now there were 3 different things that we were supposed to be doing. We were supposed to be using our masks, and we went into essential businesses, washing our hands or using hand sanitizer and social distancing. Well, I go into businesses and I wear the mask, and I go out into my neighborhood and I go walking. And then I'll see people that have their mask hanging from their rearview mirrors. We used to use fuzzy dice, and now people are using their mask hanging from their rearview mirrors. I also see people wearing their masks in their cars, and they're driving all alone, and I think, oh, how silly. It's funny. And I don't know, sometimes people get so, maybe they're just afraid of all the germs. But I understand we're supposed to wear our masks to keep our germs away from other people. I don't care anymore. It's every woman for herself. And now we have to use hand sanitizer and wash our hands. Well, when I grew up, I drank from a hose. I ate dirt. I think that turned out okay. Oh, and the big one, social distancing. We're supposed to be 6 feet away from other people. How's a single person supposed to date? My goodness. Gosh. And John Donne said that no man is an island. My goodness. The other day I went to the doctor. He was dressed in a hazmat suit. How's he going to examine me from 6 feet away? Come on over here, Doc. Come over here. Here, I'm just sitting there. It didn't make any sense. I don't see how he can examine me at all from 6 feet away. Oh, and when he got to the part about my weight, I've gained 7 pounds. Oh, I've been eating too much beer bread and beer biscuits. I baked them myself, and they're good. I'll have to cut back. Oh my goodness. Well, I've shared with you about social distancing and washing your hands and having to wear these masks, even though they are hard to breathe in. You know, in the beginning, we don't really know, even now, how long this COVID-19 is supposed to last. I don't know. It could last a while still. But I think that the best thing to do is to cherish every day and to be sure to let those that you love, let them know tell them that you love them. Back to you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Please take a moment to write comments, send a private chat to Karen if you have any feedback for her and her speech. And actually, Karen did bring up a very good point about single people trying to date during this time of social distancing. And actually, there have been quite a bit of studies that have actually shown that single people right now are having a higher rate of depression than other people. And it is for that reason. It is hard to date, and there are very few dating opportunities for single people now. And I also noticed that some of the dating websites, such as eHarmony and Chemistry and Match, have all ended up having several periods of free membership simply because you can meet someone online, however, you can't really meet in person. So you're really only getting half the experience. They end up giving some free membership away. I have not tried any of them since I've been married, but for those of you that are single out there, just an option. At this time, I will now call for a time report by Dagan to see if our speakers have qualified on time.
Yes, both speakers qualified on time. You're on mute, Lee.
And now if everyone could please send a private message to Dagan on the person that you felt did the best job between Nicholas and Karen Lee. Just a couple of other things to think about. while we are still social distancing, it's good to also think about areas in which we can grow during this time. If there's a certain skill that you feel like you could really excel at and spend more time, that's a great way to spend your extra time and feel some sense of accomplishment. There have actually been mixed results on various studies as far as college attendance, which I found very interesting. So in some aspects, there is a larger proportion of people that are going back to school. It's mainly the older generation, and the older generation that is busy working. Now they have a few extra hours. They can pick up a couple of extra classes, and there are a lot more college courses that are online today that were not online a semester ago. On the other hand, the younger population is actually not going to college. Their college admissions have been going down. And one of the reasons why is because the traditional college student at the traditional college age feels that they are not really getting their money's worth for going to college, because they don't get to go and party, because a lot of the colleges have put their classes online. They feel as if now is not time to go to college. It would be better to wait when social distancing is over, and they can go back and have the full college experience of spending time in the dorms and being part of the fraternities and getting themselves in trouble. With that, I will now turn the meeting over to our table topics master, Rob Giles. Rob.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters and guest, as your topic master, I'm starting the portion of the meeting which is concerning impromptu speaking, speaking off the cuff, or cuff, I should say, and extemporaneously. It's a way for us to hone some of our skills that might be good for social engagements, which are hard now, but even during Zoom meetings and things like that, cocktail quarantine happy hours and things of that nature. Those things can be honed, especially interviews can be honed by going through these table topic type scenarios to try to improve ourselves in off the cuff or extemporaneous speaking. During table topics, as our timer mentioned, you do need to reach 1 minute and cannot exceed 2 minutes and 30 seconds in order to qualify for the ribbon or for best topic speaker. You also must use the word of the day. If you do not use the word of the day, you've got a lot of gumption. But just remember to use that word of the day, and you, if you qualify on time as well, will qualify to be the best table topic speaker. So our theme for the evening, as Lee pointed out, is ways to deal with the pandemic, or how do we deal with the pandemic? And it made me think about just crises in general. The pandemic is a huge crisis, not just for us here now in our meetings, and not necessarily a crisis in our meetings, but we had to kind of resolve that in order to become here and have our meetings online. But we have other crises in our lives that we have to deal with. I myself even had a crisis this week where I had something similar to what Karen has recently experienced, which was plumbing issues. And I'm still kind of going through that right now. Now, fortunately, I have my landlord to lean on, and that helps a lot. It also alleviates a lot of that stress and pressure. But in essence, it's a crisis. And I wanted to go through a few different types of crises and ask some of our members here if you would please tell me how you would deal with these situations. The first thing is at work. We have crises at work, you know, if we're working. Right now I'm not working, but I know that some of us are still working through this time. And perhaps the pandemic is causing crises, but just in crisis in general. When something happens at work, do you take action? Do you take the lead? Or do you sit back and wait for somebody to do something and follow them? Or do you even kind of hide and hope that you don't have to get involved at all? This question goes to Mark Schroeder. Mark, can you tell us how do you handle that crisis at work?
Thank you, Rob. So a crisis at work. That is one of those things that you do have to put into perspective. There are things that are definitely more of a crisis than other things, if you will. And so you do have to at least take a little bit of, I guess, an evaluative stance to determine what is and what is not important. I can give you a really great example. We used to have, when we were a much smaller company, president by the name of Bob Pallick. Bob Pallick, the one thing that was true was occasionally he would come down and say, we really need something. We really need you to do something. And it was always guaranteed if Bob Pallick came down and said, this is important, this is worth your time. He was not doing it to yank your chain. He was not doing it to be able to prove that he could do it. He was not proving that he had the power. He was doing it because it really was significant and you're going to make a big business difference. And I've got to tell you, people will go through hell for Bob Pallick because they knew that he wouldn't do it facetiously. And when he did it, all of the people, they had the gumption to get up and do what was necessary. They put in the time, they put in the hours, they put in the expertise, whatever it was. With regard to the work that I do now, it varies. What I do, occasionally we have something that's like a hospital that is down with our systems. If it's a hospital, that's one thing. Each of our customers is doing different kinds of things. There are customers that clearly, because of the type of business that they do, they probably get a little bit of preference just because of the urgency of their business. And so, yeah, we definitely step up. We prioritize appropriately. It's a combination not just of what they pay, but the services they're providing and how important those services are that they be delivered in a critical manner. So we do take all of those into account. So that would be my answer.
Thank you very much, Mark. I greatly appreciate it. Evaluating things before you decide what you're going to do is I think, a good way to approach crisis. Sometimes you have to take action immediately, and sometimes that evaluation better be quick. But that's why Table Topics is here, is to help us to learn how to take those quick actions and to decide and think on our feet so that we can talk on our feet, or you get the point. So that leads me to kind of an opposite end of the spectrum, and it goes away from work. And something that I've seen, because I have a lot of nephews, a lot of second cousins, so I have a lot of kids when we have family get-togethers that sometimes can get a little bit crazy. Sometimes they're out of control, and I totally understand. I was a kid at one point. I still remember the times where I was running around without any care for anything else other than what's going on with my cousins or my friends. So I understand it, but it is crazy, and it can get crazy. And sometimes things happen that you think, do I need to stop that? Or maybe I don't. I don't know. So kids can be crazy. I would like to ask somebody, do you just roll with it? Do you participate in that craziness? Or do you call for a timeout for all of those kids? And then this question is going to go to somebody in a moment, but I'm going to ask Mark Schroeder, can you be timer? Because this one is going to Dagan Newland.
I can in just 1 second. 1 moment, please.
Dagan, hold off, please.
Stopwatch. Okay, I'm ready.
Take it away.
You're on mute, please, Dagan.
You're going to probably have to restart, Mark.
All right, I'm not really around kids, and a lot of my family members that I do have around here, they don't have kids either. So, but I can say, and maybe in a work environment, because I work in retail, and you got kids coming through all the time, causing ruckus sometimes. Especially, actually, I can tell you, especially a long time ago, when I was first opened up the Firewheel store in Garland, Texas. Back when I was a loss prevention manager, it came to be kind of known at the mall where, families just drop their kids off and let them roam around and do whatever they want. So we'd have kids all the time, come up to the store and, like in our home department, we have, beds out this, for display, and, so we can display the comforters on how they look in the bed. People would be like jumping on the bed, and, of course, as a security manager, that'd be one thing I would take care of besides the sales managers. If I saw that, I'd go with them, and I would have the gumption to go up to them and tell them, you need to cut it out. And, but, luckily they listen to me because, I look like, I'm kind of a mean type of guy, but the people that know me, he's just a big old teddy bear. But when you don't know me, people always think, he's mean. I always get that from people that don't know me. But anyway, yeah, kids, yeah, you got to make them behave, and just got to tell them right off the bat, cut it out and go home. Back to you, Table Topic Master.
Thank you very much, David. I greatly appreciate it. I think that if I was one of those kids and I saw you coming, I think I'd behave pretty darn quickly. So I totally agree with some of the people around you who say, you might have a certain look, but underneath you're a soft guy. So that brings you to table topic number 3, which extends a little bit along those lines of more non-work, and that's personal crises. Just like I had mentioned earlier, I'm currently going through a plumbing issue at home. In some ways, I want to tackle some of these things so I can learn. In some ways, I don't want to touch them because they can become crazy. But I want to ask, for personal crises, are you somebody that is a do-it-yourselfer? Do you phone a friend? And if you phone a friend, who do you phone? How do you deal with these personal crises? I'm going to ask this to Kim Crandall. Kim, how do you deal with personal crisis?
You're on mute. I'm trying to get you off. Okay, try now.
You have to recognize, number one, how severe is the crisis? What's going on? And secondly, is it something that you can manage yourself, or is it something that you need help with? You may be going through a good day and something comes up and you basically let it roll off. Okay. You have the gumption, you have all the skills you need, but then there could be days where it just seems like everything just caves in on you. So I think the thing that's important to remember, number one, is even with what we're going through right now, it's important. You have to take care of yourself. You have to find ways to alleviate stress. It could be something as simple as taking 5 minutes and go get a drink of water, go to the restroom. It could be something that maybe something new to learn. I know that at work sometimes when I was asking people what they do, and somebody said that they were using a boxing bag. They were taking up boxing to alleviate times when they were really angry, rather than doing something inappropriate, something that's not productive. Being able to take and do something physical to release that. I think that the thing is, you don't want something to get out of hand and escalate. Yes, there's times when you have something going on and it's very stressful, but by taking steps, you're not going to make it even worse. Mr. Tabletop Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Kim. Definitely making sure that you're okay is very important in any personal crisis, especially these times of the pandemic. And a lot of times I think you have to take care of yourself first before you can really help anybody to a large extent. It doesn't mean that you can't do some things, but making sure that you're okay first is very important. And it's just like being on an airplane, those masks fall, you need to put one on yourself first, because you don't know if there might be a split second where you aren't going to be able to help anybody. Kind of leads me to helping somebody that's close to you, family specifically. This week, I also had a family emergency, which unfortunately I wasn't near to be able to help. However, I've learned over time, and I learned again this week, how my father deals with it. And I try to incorporate that in my own life. He takes control of the situation, and he does things in a pragmatic and practical way in order to handle things. And it's really meant a lot to me. At some point in time, he's not going to be there to take care of some of those things. And I hope that I might be able to fill that role for other family members when that does occur. What I would like to ask is, for family crises, do you take control? Do you have a sibling or somebody else in the family that generally will be the leader when these crises happen? And why do you take control, or why is it somebody else that's taking control? This question is going to go to Marcia. Marcia, can you let us in on that a little bit for you?
Yes, I can. Well, this was, Rob, that was good that you selected me, because as a matter of fact, as I stated, that I am currently in Los Angeles, and I just needed to just pray, have the gumption to get on the plane and travel to Los Angeles. And as we all know, Los Angeles is just as red as Texas, and Dallas more specifically as it relates to COVID-19. And so my father became ill. He needed surgery, and I needed to come. We only have one mother and one father, and so it was very important to me to come. Although all of my family is here, my siblings are here, but I still felt that it was important. I'm the youngest of four. I would say that I am the most rational one. They say I'm bossy, but I just call it good leadership skills. So I am the one that seems to be able to kind of like pull it together, kind of organize everything, and then let my oldest siblings come on in and take their role respectively. And so, yes, I would definitely say that I am the one. I feel that I have a better way to communicate to my parents. My parents are older. My mom is 78, my dad is 80. So I think my approach to them and speaking with them and making recommendations, but all the while hoping that they allow them to make the decision, but kind of encourage them in a different way. So yes, I definitely am the one. Yes. Back to you, Mr.
Thank you very much, Marcia. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
I probably need to take a little bit of, I guess, I don't want to say advice, but a little bit look to your situation and probably incorporate that myself, because I do have two siblings that are with my parents, but yet I stayed here in Dallas. So maybe I need to change my perspective on that and maybe do things a little bit differently. So I appreciate that. I've got one more topic question, and this one is kind of thinking back, I guess, as we grow up, some of the hardest years are our teenage years. And I think those were, it's kind of close to what Dagan was talking about, but when you're a family and you have teenage kids, parenting has become a lot different now than it was back when I was a kid. It's a totally different game, but yet not everybody works it the same way. I wonder, as far as dealing with a teenage kid, if you were a parent, do you treat them as a friend? You try to get in and be close to them that way? Or do you try to be that authoritative, that parental, that strong role model that teaches them the hard way, or presents a maybe hard love? This question goes out to Nicholas. Nicholas, if you're going to be, when you're going to be a parent, or if you're going to be a parent, what approach do you think you're going to take?
Yes, thanks, Rob. So that's actually a very good question for me, because I've had a little brother who's 13 years old right now. So when I was 13, he was just born. And I kind of looked at him, or I look to my experiences with him as that question continuously progresses in my mind and evolves. So I'm definitely more of the friendly. I'd like to hang out with him, and he loves playing video games, like Fortnite, and he plays the Call of Duty, and I love doing that stuff with him, shooting the basketball hoops, and at times letting him eat, food maybe he shouldn't, some junk food, and running at the park and swimming with him, and hey, sometimes I look at myself and I'm like, should I have been a little bit more authoritative in that situation? And I say, probably not, because he's in a great place right now. He's doing really well. He's got a lot of very, very fun friends, and grew up kind of like I did. So in that sense, yes, I'm much more of a fun-loving and caring and just all around great guy to be around with my little brother. And I probably will be the same thing at the chagrin of my future wife, or whoever that may be, of those kids. So yes, certainly. Back to you, Mr.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. I can kind of relate to that. You're not really taking that total parental role, but you have some of that influence if you want to use it. I myself, recently visiting my nephews, had long extended times where I was playing old style video games, classics, and kind of schooling them, I will say, at times. But I get to be the fun uncle, which is kind of what your role is as well with your brother. So I totally can appreciate that. That is going to conclude our topics for tonight. At this point, I'm going to ask our timer, did all of our contestants qualify on time?
Yes, they all qualified on time. And Marsha, I do want to apologize to you, because I did get that green a little bit too late, because I was just kind of wrapped up in what you're saying. So I apologize for that. But yes, everybody qualified.
Thank you so much, Dagan. Appreciate that. So with everybody qualifying on time, there's one other qualification to meet, and that is the word of the day. And that is Marsha. Marsha, did all of our contestants qualify by using the word of the day?
Yes, we did a really good job today. Yes.
Excellent, excellent. So it didn't take a whole lot of gumption to get that word in there, I guess, but in the end, it was all good. So at this point, we have 5 contestants. So please send your votes to Dagan Newland as our vote counter. And the contestants are as follows. Mr. Mark Schroeder, who talked about crises at work. We had Dagan Newland talking about those crazy kids at his work that try to take over and just make their own playground. We talked to Kim, who talked about personal crises and how you deal with those. And then Marsha also with family crises. And finally, Nicholas dealing with teenagers and how he deals with his brother. So go ahead and send your vote to Dagan Newland in a private chat, and he will tally those up for the end of the meeting and announce the winners, or the winner from that. At this point, I'm going to pass the meeting over, as long as our Toastmaster, and you can interject if you need this, but at this point, I'm going to pass the meeting over to our general evaluator. Please help me to welcome Mr. Mark Schroeder.
Thank you, Rob. All right, as he mentioned, I'm going to be your general evaluator for the evening, which means several things. It means I'm going to be evaluating the meeting as a whole toward the end. but it also means I'm going to be calling on our 2 speech evaluators and all of our duty holders to give their reports for how they thought we did at our meeting tonight. I think I will go ahead and start with our speech evaluations. Our first speaker tonight, of course, was Nicholas Elwood, and Nicholas's evaluator is Mark Sims. Mark, are you prepared?
Yes.
All right. If you would please welcome Mark Sims for his evaluation of our first speaker tonight. Mark.
Thank you. Nicholas, one of your goals, a main goal, was to use language to make this speech more interesting, more impactful. And you definitely did that. The language was very descriptive, very powerful, and all throughout this speech, it was just packed into it. Just take Charleston, for example, some of the descriptions. It's sunny, beautiful. I think it had white, pristine, elegant sand. At one point, I think you referred to an estuary of rivers, and I'll have to look that up. You used the term slaveocracy. You made reference to sublime and picturesque scenery, not just nice scenery, but sublime and picturesque. Tall grass that stretched for miles. And the city was perennially rated in a positive manner, not just frequently, but perennially. And then you even worked in the word of the day, gumption. And not just Charleston, but Dallas. It was dynamic and progressive. Your Lakewood neighborhood is beautiful and diversified and charming. Excellent language. You also provided very good detail about Charleston. Now, I have been there, so this really hit home to me, because that's why I greatly enjoyed it. But I did not notice you made a reference to 300 churches on the peninsula. I would not have counted the churches, but boy, that really jumps out at you. That is just an amazing amount for such. It's not a real small town, but it's 300 churches is a lot for Charleston. And then you noted it was well known for its restaurant life. Even better, because I can remember it, forget the name of it, but I can remember a specific restaurant where you could sit outside, and I ate there at least twice in the roughly week that I was there. And then you also mentioned the history. It was a prominent gateway to the slave trade, and I recall going through a slave house there. So the detail and the substance are very helpful. And again, you lucked out with me because I can definitely fondly remember that trip. Key things to work on, maybe the eyes. Possibly you were trying to recall some of those words, so I think I could see the eyes shift to where you were in recollection mode. And maybe to really challenge yourself, the voice. Now, your voice was very strong. It was very clear. It was very good for a speech. But for example, talking about the slave trade, a lower, more serious, obviously a very tragic subject. The pristine beaches. And then you were left behind when your parents went to Charleston. So those are some considerations to watch the eye contact and to maybe try for different modulation in your voice tones. But overall, great, very detailed, greatly enjoyed it. Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you so much, Mark. Let's see, our second evaluator is going to be John Vessels. John, a quick check. Were you all set as well?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right, so our second evaluator will be John Vessels, evaluating the speech given tonight by Kieran Lee. Please welcome John for his evaluation of Kieran's speech. John.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters and guests, and especially Karen. You're doing the very first speech of the new Pathways, and I want to start by saying I think you did a very good job. Your speech was meant to be humorous, and you brought some good humorous points in there. Also, I thought that your opening was good. I would have liked to seen it a little more organized, but you presented the material and what the subject matter you were going to cover was. It seemed to be a little distracted, so I'd like you to pull the opening up together a little bit. And you presented some good entertaining as far as I'm concerned. I went to my doctor, and yeah, she was covered head to toe with everything under the sun, and it's like she never got closer to 6 feet from me. So I understand that. And the rest of the time you're doing virtual. It's like, how much can you do watching me on TV? But anyway, but you brought this good point. And the people, I see that too. The people driving down the road wearing their mask. And maybe they just forget to take it off and you get accustomed to it. And hey, that's fine at least. But no, as soon as, before I get in my car, I take my mask off. But you made some good points jumping on them. And I'd like to see you tighten up those humorous moments and make them a little more, yeah, and make fun of them. I mean, because it's funny and ironic that people behave this way. But you did present really good points. Also, I like your ending. I like that, you came around and told everybody that, take the life, live it the best you can every single day and let people know that you love them. Because we never know how much longer we've got going. So all for you. Thanks, Karen, very much. Take care.
Thank you, John. I'm actually one of the people who wears the mask in the car all the time, partially just for practice, but mostly, to be honest, mostly so that once I put it on, I don't touch it again until I'm ready to get off and get out of the car and be done. So
just loop it with your ear loop. I mean,
mine are all full headband. Part of the difference. I don't use the ear loops. Mine are all headband. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm bringing up the interest of Karen with all of the masking and everything. The cartoon has got the person looking at at someone in full PPE, mask, gown, everything, and saying, "Are you here for my surgery?" And the answer is, "No, I'm here to do your hair." But unfortunately, that's about where we are at the moment. All right, let's go on with we got a couple of pieces of business before we go on with our duty holders. Before we do that, let's ask if both of our both of our evaluators qualified on time. How did our evaluators do on time?
Yes, both qualified on time. And Mark, you just barely made it. But yes, both qualified. Okay,
wonderful. All right, that means we have a good chance for voting for each of our contestants tonight for Best Evaluator. Our contestants again were Mark Sims and John Vessels. Please send a vote to Dagan Newland for one of those two participants in the evaluation contest tonight. And with that, we can go ahead and start on our duty holders. Our first duty holder tonight, I'm going to do them in the order on the agenda, which brings me to our grammarian first. Marcia, tell us how we did on grammar, word of the day, etc. today.
Okay, you're kind of going in and out, Mark, but I can infer what you were saying. So as it relates to the word of the day, we had a pretty good balance of the use of the word. We had some great phrases, slaveocracy from Nicholas. Your pronunciation that included the possession, Nicholas's, although his name ends in an S, you did a great job with that. You caught that. Along with Rob saying he schooled. That's an old school sort of little colloquialism there. So he schooled them. That was a good phrasing. Do you all want me to, although I did not have the opportunity to do the all?
You can go ahead and do that one at the same time, sure.
Okay. So I take it home this evening yet again with the use of I'm working on it. I'm working on it. So pretty much it was me. We had a few wells and one but. But other than that, we did a great job. I would like to agree with Mark regarding Nicholas's with very colorful words. Let's see, which one was it? It was enchanting woodland, frolicking, sublime, causing a ruckus was Dagan, pragmatic, extemporaneously, chagrin. So we did very well this evening. Great job, everyone.
Thank you so much, Marcia.
Thank
I have to
you.
admit, that's probably the first time that I've heard the word frolicking without adding the word naked or nude right after it. Usually it's frolicking naked. Seems to be almost as if it's a single word. All right, next. Our posture bell tonight was Kim Crandall. Kim, please give us your report. There we go. I think. No.
Oh, there you go.
Try now.
Overall, we had a lot of great gestures tonight. Both of our speakers did, I noticed a lot of good gestures. During table topics, I also noticed some good gestures. The only thing that I would comment on as far as anything that was distracting, but it wasn't really ongoing, just one time, Dagan, I noticed a head scratch. That's the only thing that was noteworthy this evening, Mr. General Evaluator.
All right, thank you, Kim. And I apologize. I think probably both of us were going for your unmute button at the same time. One of us got the unmute and then the other put it right back on mute. So I apologize for that. But I think we were both reaching for it at the same time, I think. All right, so that concludes our duty holders reports. At this point, it's going to be my job to give a report on how I thought we did at the meeting as a whole. And I'm going to start off with the fact that I thought that with regard to the meeting start, we were pretty much on time. We gave a couple extra minutes just in case we had a guest or two join us. As facilitator, I think I went on a teeny bit too long when I started up, honestly. So I need to tighten that up a little bit. And of course, I mistakenly referred to us as Dallas singles again. That's what happens when you're not thinking and you're so used to doing the other. With regard to, let's see, what does that say? We did a very good job of getting everything done and delegated before we started our meeting, so we didn't have to deal with any additional role moving while we were in our meeting. I thought we did a great job with regard to that. Word of the day, I was pretty impressed that everybody was able to use the word of the day. I never would have thought that the name of a Cajun restaurant would have been so ubiquitously used, but I guess Bubba Gumption Shrimp really got everybody started. So everybody was able to use that really, really well. In this particular case, as facilitator, I would be interested in comments back in a couple of cases for our speakers rather than interrupt and say, make sure to pin your timer. I tried to chat to some of the people and say, make sure that you have pinned your timer, Dagan. And I did that as a chat instead of verbally to try to be a little bit less distracting. If you felt that that was effective, let me know. If you felt that it was not effective, let me know as well. I love the fact that we have two speakers. I always like when we have competitions. It improves everything, makes our meetings not just longer, but more interesting. And both of the speakers, the speeches were very, very different tonight in their character. And the diversity of that, I thought, it makes for a better meeting. With regard to the table topics, Lee, I thought that was a great topic for the table topics tonight. Excellent questions, questions that were pretty easy for everybody to come up with an answer. And most of the questions allowed people to give a certain amount of personal disclosure, which I also think that lends to better, more interesting questions. I think a lot of us even though we are trying to survive COVID-19, we're going to end up with COVID-20. Instead, COVID-20, of course, is the 20 pounds that you gain when you are locked down. It is very similar to what my wife used to suffer when she started with Frito. It was referred to as the Frito 15. It's the same thing, just having to do with working at Frito. Rob, also a couple of things with regard to your performance tonight. You used the word of the day both before and after table topics, so you managed to work it in both places. For me, I kind of wish I had gotten the question of what do you do with regard to expert help or not. Just this last week, I had 2 instances of that, one of which I needed a plumber. I have watched the plumber when they came and performed this particular repair. It's a less than a $2 part that obviously costs you between $70 and $150 to have them replace it. So I have now learned how to replace that $2 part on my own. So that's the feature of one that I do myself. On the other hand, I have a yellow jacket nest in bushes. There is no amount of money to let me deal with that nightmare on my own. That's a call in the professionals and let them deal with it. So I go both ways. I'm not into being stung, and those little guys, they sting anything that moves. But again, I love the personal disclosure and the ability that those questions gave for that. And obviously I had some too. With regard to the parenting question, I like that question as well. My answer, well, let me introduce you to duct tape. Finally, it was Nicholas's comment about fun uncle. That is a big deal to me. I have 2 nieces, and I am constantly asking if I am the favorite uncle and doing whatever I have to do in terms of gifts and money and time and you name it, contact in order to make sure I retain favorite uncle status. Nobody's going to beat me out of that. Tonight, I thought we had 2 very good evaluations. The evaluation, Mark in particular, I like the fact that you pointed out the word choice that Nicholas had used. I thought the word choice tonight was exceptional. And it just was 100% throughout the speech, without a doubt. Just very, very good word choice, very descriptive throughout. And I really enjoyed that. That was what made that speech more unusual, I think, than our average speech. It clearly, to me, looked like it had a feel of it had been written out because of the myriad of vocabulary that was used. And I think Nicholas kind of confirmed that he did do some writing out of that to me privately in the chat. Sorry for throwing you under the bus there, Nicholas. But I mean, it's not uncommon. One of the recommendations, one of the world champions says, write your speech out verbatim. That is his recommendation. Now, there are not all of the champions do that. In fact, some of the champions disagree with this champion, and they are still good friends. But I do know his recommendation. That's David Brooks. He says, write your speeches out. So it can help, and it can certainly get you that kind of word choice and that kind of variety. That's going to conclude my evaluation report for tonight's meeting. And with that, I believe, let's see, Lee, do you have any comments that you would like to give as Toastmaster before we move directly to the business meeting?
I'm going to vote for the big 3.
Yeah, we need to do a vote for big 3. You're right. So let me call for that real quick while Lee is thinking about that question. Our vote for the big 3 tonight, of course, the big 3 being our Toastmaster tonight was Lee King. Table topics tonight was Rob Giles. And the general evaluator tonight was myself, Mark Schroeder. Please take some time and vote for one of the 3 of us, sending your votes to Dagan Newell. And with that, I will re-ask the question. Lee, do you have any final comments, or should I just go directly to the business meeting with Mark? I don't even see Lee in the meeting anymore. Lee must have dropped off or had a problem.
Yeah, he's gone.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's go ahead. We'll just go ahead directly to Mark Sims for the business meeting. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. And Mark Schroeder, I want to make it very clear that if you want to adopt me as your nephew, I'm definitely open to the gifts. I'll periodically say that you're my favorite uncle.
I understand.
And since most of my uncles are pretty tight-fisted with money, that would be a true statement. So please keep that in mind, especially as we approach Christmas.
Yeah, I actually have my sisters, the intermediary, as it were, tell me, you have to stop sending them so much money. They do not need that. It's like, what do I do?
Wise advice. A few things I want to go over. Let me see. Our guest, Devon, obviously had to leave a little early. Did she actually join?
She has not joined tonight. She did express interest in joining, said she would be back in September, and we will be getting with her regarding membership and trying to join.
Excellent. That is very good. I talked with Mary Gomez earlier today. She is our area director. She asked me several questions about the club because she was completing a club report. And she sent me the PDF on that, and I've sent it to the entire club just a little bit earlier today. So when you have an opportunity, look it over and you can see her impressions. And I haven't had a chance to study it in depth. I just saw the email recently, but forwarded it on to everyone. And I did ask Mary, or remind her, that a few weeks ago I had emailed her about us getting a guest speaker for the September 10th contest. She had not heard back anything, but she was going to try again. And along those lines, what I was thinking is that if she can provide a guest speaker that Rob and Lee would be able to evaluate in the evaluation contest, that would be the best. If we just don't hear back from anyone on that and we have to do our own, I would be willing to come up with a speech for the guys to evaluate me. But if we can get the outside speaker, so much the better. So hopefully I'll hear something back from her, because she was going to double down on that. And also along those lines, the September 10th contest, we have 2 contestants so far for the evaluation, Rob and Lee. We don't have any offers yet to try and give a humorous speech. And I was actually trying to think of one I could give, but the wells are pretty well dry. So we don't absolutely have to have a contestant there, but it would be best, it would be great for us to be able to send someone on to the area contest. So again, please do check within your soul if you think you have any funny inclinations whatsoever. Don't be shy, because it's really fun to, as opposed to giving a serious speech like you might give at work, to give something just different, to kind of step out there, out of your comfort zone. So please do consider that, because definitely by next week, which would be September 3rd, we'll pretty well have to have it nailed down what we're going to do for the 10th. And so I would envision it to be a pretty simple meeting, but hopefully, again, we'll get the guest speaker. And thank you to Mark Schroeder and to Dagan sending me information on expenses. And don't know if we want to get into this now, but going over my own mental thoughts of what if we, in the 6 months coming up, if we were at Azona's roughly half the time, 6 weeks in the remainder of 2020, and then most of the first 3 months of 2021. With that, and then with the expenses that Mark Schroeder outlined, and then with the other miscellaneous, such as possibly a new banner, ribbons, etc. I had originally had a thought that maybe we could reduce the dues somewhat, but at the current membership levels, I don't know if we would be able to do that, especially since I'm pretty well banking on the fact that the people that signed up at the last minute before the end of the prior term most likely would not be re-upping on their dues. So we can give that some more thought, but it looks like when you start throwing in everything, what we owe to or pay to TMI, then making an assumption on how much we use the room, normal expenses, at some point it all adds up. And Rob and I did a little private chatting before the meeting, and at the next meeting, we'll kind of catch up on recognizing the various folks that have earned or attained a goal in their educational, in the pathways levels. And so we again, follow up on that next week, since we have had several people that have achieved a certain educational goal. And I do not have any additional business. Does anyone have anything to bring up? Mark Schroeder.
Yes, we did have a request from Skip Skipworth for a guest speaker for their club. They are a club that meets on Monday nights. They are also doing Zoom. And obviously the feature here is you do not have to come up with a new speech. You can redo one of your speeches because they've never heard it. At least not unless you've done it on Zoom and they've already been binge watching all of our Zoom meetings, which I suspect is not likely. So they are looking for a speaker for the very same reason that we are for their contest. And they have reached out to us. Now, Skip Skipworth, this would be really especially fair because Skip is a previous DSTM member. He goes back, I remember the name. He was leaving the club, I think about the same time that I was coming in years ago. So Skip, if we were to help Skip out with somebody at the Monday meeting on August 31st, that's when their contest is, for their local contest is in the club. We would be helping out a previous member. So if anybody's interested and has a speech that they would be willing to give, you typical 5 to 7, nothing unusual, and you can redo a speech that you've already given before. You're just giving it for their speech contest. That's the purpose.
I would add that perhaps if we do this, then they may provide a test speaker, target speaker for us.
It is certainly true that if we were to say we've got somebody, we could ask, could you reciprocate? Easily. We could easily ask that.
And honestly, if we don't have anybody else, I know generally with these speakers for the evaluations, the idea is to try to have somebody who's not too much, who hasn't been around a while. So maybe somebody who has only a little bit of experience with Toastmasters. It makes for a little bit wider variety for the evaluations. But I'm happy to be that speaker for them if nobody else wants to step into that role. That being said,
that would be amazing, Rob.
You know, we have a lot of experienced speakers, so you know I'm happy to do that. And if we don't hear from anybody, I'll let Skip know that we'll have somebody, and then hopefully if somebody else wants to come in, they'll be the person. Otherwise, I'll be the person. And in that vein, I guess I will ask to see if he can reciprocate for sure for the 10th.
This is Mark. Also, I also was just going to mention that Skip also said that they are not meeting around the holiday, around September 7th, because that's obviously a Monday holiday for them. He was actually looking for a club to join a meeting. So I expect that he will probably attend our September 3rd meeting.
One other thing too, Mark, I was going to say, so our idea as of right now for September 10th, for the contest meeting, is to just have a normal meeting, you know, and then, you know, obviously have, you know, the 2 evaluators for the 1 speech. Do we want to have another speech, a second speaker, and then have an evaluator for that speaker as well, or just do the 1?
And this is just me thinking, might be cleaner to have the one guest speaker, and so that the focus would be on that, and then the evaluation of that speaker. And then definitely we want to have other normal things such as the role presentations and the table topics.
Right. Now, that being said, also, if we have somebody who does want to give a humorous speech, possibly Karen Lee.
Yes, I'll give a humorous speech.
You'll give a humorous speech?
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
All right,
so
perfect.
My only other thing too is that we, as far as having kind of a normal meeting with the way we normally vote, we need to make sure that, I mean, I'm on board with that. We need to make sure that Lee is on board since he's competing. Since at this point, at least, Karen is not competing, because normally ballots are totally, you know, I mean, they're, you know, there's a chief judge and all that stuff, but we just want to make sure that everybody is okay with the method.
I see. With just the normal vote, in a sense, we would all be the chief judges and everyone that votes. spread the wealth around. Yeah, I see that, because it would be great in a sense to have someone, I guess, with the actual training in that area. But on the other hand, sometimes you do what you got to do. And I think we could, I'm comfortable with us all voting. And is there any other business to bring up? In that case, I'd like to hear from Dagan Newland on the winners.
All right. We're going to go in the order the way we voted. Our best speaker tonight is going to be Nicholas. And our best table topic participant is going to be Marcia. And our best evaluator tonight is going to be John Vessels. And our best of the big three goes to Rob Giles.
Unmute, and thank you all very much. Great meeting, and y'all have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Recording,
Y'all too. Bye, everybody.
recording stopped in 3, 2.